All right, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're unpacking one of the most intense, edge-of-your-seat political standoffs in all of ancient royal history. We're looking at a moment where this grand, completely peaceful assembly of heavily armed monarchs transforms, literally in a matter of minutes, into a terrifying powder keg just waiting to explode. Let's break down exactly how this incredible tension was built, step by step. It's seriously a masterclass in political maneuvering, perceived insults, and the rapid, terrifying escalation to war. So, let's get started.
I want to hook you instantly with this chilling decree. Just listen to this. Those men that will not worship the lotus-eyed Krishna should be regarded as dead though moving. I mean, let the sheer weight of that sink in for a second. This isn't just some mild disagreement over protocol. This is a full-on declaration of absolute social and spiritual exile. What we're exploring today is how a seemingly simple ceremonial dispute over who gets honored first at a massive royal sacrifice suddenly escalated into a matter of life and death. The stakes honestly could not be higher, and this decree perfectly sets the stage for the extreme factions we're about to see form.
Part 1, the ultimate challenge.
So, how do we actually get to that point of absolute extremism?
Well, the inciting incident of our story begins the very moment the mighty elder, Bhishma, stops speaking. The floor is open, the tension is palpable, and a figure named Sahadeva takes center stage with some incredibly grave intent. He steps up to offer the arghya. Now, this isn't just a polite nod or a friendly toast, right? The arghya is the absolute highest ceremonial offering of respect. Imagine a gathering of the world's most powerful, proud, and heavily armed monarchs. Who receives this first worship is fiercely contested. It essentially establishes the absolute hierarchy in the room. And Sahadeva? He's about to offer this massive political and religious prize to Krishna, the slayer of Kasi. It's a decision that threatens to just completely tear the entire assembly apart.
And Sahadeva's defense of this choice is, well, it's incredibly aggressive. He says, "This my foot is placed on the heads of almighty ones. Let that one give me an adequate reply." That is a profoundly aggressive physical metaphor. He isn't just suggesting Krishna gets the arghya. He is boldly asserting total dominance over anyone who even dares to doubt Krishna's immeasurable energy. He's drawing a line in the sand and practically begging someone to cross it.
But he doesn't just throw out threads. He brilliantly illustrates the logic behind his choice. He bestows upon Krishna titles of absolute, undeniable authority. He calls him the preceptor, the father, the guru. He argues that Krishna is literally the sole figure deserving of this initial worship. By framing it this way, Sahadeva is directly daring any intelligent king in that room to disagree. Because if you disagree, you aren't just insulting Krishna, you're basically arguing against the very concepts of fatherhood and divine instruction themselves.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. Would these incredibly proud and mighty kings actually accept this insult? I want you to just pause for a second and really imagine the sheer, suffocating pressure in this room right now. You have a massive hall filled with proud monarchs, all of whom firmly believe in their own supreme power, and a younger royal has just metaphorically placed his foot on their heads. The air is thick, the silence is deafening. So, what happens next?
That brings us to part 2, silence and divine approval.
Now, you'd probably expect an immediate uproar, right? Swords drawn, shouts of absolute outrage. But instead, this eerie, super heavy silence falls over the otherwise proud monarchs immediately after Sahadeva shows his foot. Not a single one among those intelligent, wise, and mighty rulers says a word. And then this deeply uncomfortable silence is broken by a shocking, supernatural endorsement. First, seemingly out of nowhere, a sudden shower of flowers falls directly onto Sahadeva's head, and second, an incorporeal, disembodied voice just echoes through the massive hall, simply stating, "Excellent, excellent." It's this incredibly surreal moment where an earthly political standoff is just suddenly interrupted by cosmic validation.
And to really cement this supernatural weight, a figure named Narada steps forward. We heard his decree earlier, but just consider his cosmic credentials for a second. He's clad in black deerskin, known as the dispeller of all doubts, fully acquainted with all the worlds, and he speaks of both the future and the past. This isn't just another politician giving a speech. So when Narada steps into the middle of innumerable creatures and declares that anyone opposing Krishna is as good as dead, it carries absolute terrifying weight.
Part 3. Sisupala sparks a rebellion.
So Sahadeva, fully cognizant of his duties, officially completes the ceremony, having worshipped Krishna first. But the absolute second that first worship is received, the peace just shatters completely. Enter Sisupala. He's also known in the text as Sunitha, the mower of foes. With eyes literally red as copper from anger, he issues this incredibly violent call to arms. When I am here to hedge you all, what are you thinking of now? Arrayed, let us stand in battle. He is utterly rejecting the ceremony, the flowers, the incorporeal voice, the whole shebang. He steps up to rally the stunned, silent rulers, breaking the spell and demanding immediate violent action.
Look at this rapid, terrifying descent into chaos. Minute 1, the peaceful sacrificial rite by Yudhishthira is completed by Sahadeva. Minute 2, Sisupala loudly stirs the pot. Minute 3, the invited monarchs, who, remember, were dead silent just moments ago, suddenly turn visibly pale, their faces totally contorting with anger. And by minute 4, this sacred gathering has completely mutated into an active, chaotic war council as the kings begin to plot exactly how to obstruct the completion of the sacrifice.
What we have now is a complete political gridlock. The room has hard fractured into two deeply entrenched factions. On one side, we have the hosts, the assembled Vrishnis and the Pandavas, bolstered by Krishna and, quite literally, backed by divine voices. On the other side, we have Sisupala and a massive coalition of insulted monarchs, and they are absolutely determined that they will not let this worship be regarded as something they just acquiesce to. Neither side can back down. Diplomacy is officially over.
Moving into Part 4, the tides of war.
We have reached the absolute boiling point. All attempts to keep the peace have completely failed. The crucial factor right now is understanding the psychological state of this mob. The source text leans heavily into sensory storytelling here. The kings are described as being deprived of reason through pure anger. They're smarting under the perceived insult, impelled by this arrogant belief in their own self-confidence and power. Friends step in, desperately trying to appease them, but they're just ignored. My absolute favorite description from the text is this: their faces glowed with anger like those of roaring lions driven away from their prey. They are starving, they are enraged, and they are ready to strike.
This all builds into one massive, honestly terrifying image. Krishna, sitting right at the center of this storm, looks out at the room. He understands immediately what is happening. The text describes what he sees as a vast sea of monarchs, with its countless waves of troops. He realizes with absolute certainty that this sea of angry, roaring lions is preparing for a terrific rush. The diplomacy is dead. The violence is imminent.
And that leaves us right on the edge of the blade. The powder keg is lit, the fuse is burning, and this massive sea of troops is ready to surge forward. We've just seen how a single offering of respect morphed into a justification for all-out war. It really makes you wonder just how fragile political alliances actually are when pride is on the line. I'll leave you with this final provocative question to think about. In a room full of roaring lions and divine forces, when reason is completely abandoned, who will strike first? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.